Sultan. Once upon a time, there was a kind and gentle old sheepdog called Sultan, who lived on a farm with a hard-working shepherd and his wife. Sultan loved his life in the countryside so much, and wanted to stay with his master forever and ever. Every day he would lie in the fields watching the sheep and basking in the sunshine, and his tail would wag because he was so happy. One day, the shepherd took his wife aside. "Poor old Sultan," he whispered. "He's lost most of his teeth, and he's no use to us as a guard dog now. It would be kinder if I shot him tomorrow. How can a dog who lets butterflies play on his nose be expected to protect us in our old age?" When the shepherd's wife heard these harsh words, she started to cry. She cried so much that the wool she was winding soon became soaking wet. "How could you even think of killing Sultan?" she cried. "He's been faithful to us for many years, and we should look after him for the rest of his days." "You're being very silly," shouted the shepherd. "There are many thieves and wicked men living out in the woods nearby. Sultan would be no match for them. I'm sorry, dear wife, but I've made my mind up. Tomorrow will be Sultan's last day." Sultan, who was lying close by, heard every word that his master had said, and felt very sad when he thought of all the lovely friends he'd have to say goodbye to. He spent the whole afternoon crying. In fact, he cried so much that when one of the butterflies came to play on his nose, he said, "Sultan, I am swimming in your tears. Why are you so upset?" The poor, gentle little dog told the butterfly what his master was planning to do to him. "Oh, poor, poor Sultan," said the butterfly. "This is sad news for me and all the other butterflies. Where will we ever find such a kind and faithful friend?" Sultan then wandered off to his master's house. When he got to the house, he was too upset to go inside, so he walked up and down the path until it started to get dark. "I'll go and see my old friend the wolf," he said. "Perhaps he'll be able to cheer me up." So off to the woods he went. When he got to the woods, the wolf was very happy to see him. "I've an idea," said the wolf. "If you follow my advice, you can become a hero. Sit closer, and I'll tell you how. Every morning, your master and his wife go out into the fields with their little baby, and they put her in a shady spot while they work in the fields. Now, if I come and snatch the baby and then drop her in the woods, you can take her back and be a real hero. Your master and his wife will be so grateful to you for saving the little girl's life that they'll thank you for the rest of their lives." "I think that's a brilliant idea," said Sultan. "But you must promise me that you won't do any harm to the little baby. She's very precious to my master. If anything happened to her, my master would never forgive me." "I promise you that I will be as gentle as a butterfly," said the wolf. So, the next day, Sultan and the clever old wolf put their plan into action. While the shepherd and his wife were hard at work in the fields, the wolf picked the baby up in his mouth very gently and then ran off into the woods. "Help! Help!" cried the shepherd and his wife. "The wicked wolf has stolen our precious baby! If someone doesn't catch up with him, we'll never see her again!" The shepherd looked at Sultan and said, "Run as fast as your legs can carry you. If you can save our baby, we'll look after you for the rest of your days." When Sultan heard this, he ran like the wind and barked at the wolf as he ran. The poor little baby didn't know what was happening, so she started to cry out for her mother and father. But there was no need for her to worry, as the wolf treated her very gently and was very careful not to drop her or bite her. The wolf didn't run at his fastest speed, and this gave Sultan time to catch up with him. When the wolf reached the woods, he put the baby down gently on some soft grass and spoke kind words to her. "Don't cry, little baby. There's nothing to be afraid of here. When you grow up, you'll understand that you helped to save Sultan's life, and you will spend many happy hours playing with him, because he is the gentlest creature I know." When the baby heard this, she smiled, and when she saw Sultan, she started chuckling. Sultan picked the happy little baby up and took her back to her mother and father. The shepherd and his wife jumped up and down with joy when they saw Sultan carrying their baby. "How can we ever thank you?" said the shepherd. "Wife, go home and make Sultan the best dinner he has ever had." That afternoon, Sultan was spoiled in a way that no dog has ever been spoiled before, and he certainly deserved it. The shepherd's wife made him the most delicious bone broth he had ever tasted.
"There you are, Sultan. Some lovely soup for you."
His master went out to buy him a new basket, and he put his favourite cushion in it to make it extra comfortable for him.
"Sit yourself down now. Good dog."
All afternoon, the whole family kept stroking and kissing him.
"He's a good dog. Good boy, good boy."
Sultan was loving all the attention he was getting, and it wasn't long before he was fast asleep and having pleasant dreams. When he'd had his nap, he wandered off to the woods to thank the wolf for helping him out. The wolf was very happy to see his old friend Sultan again.
"I'm so glad you came to see me. Let me tell you how you can help me this time," said the wolf.
"I'm all ears," said Sultan. "After all, one good turn deserves another."
"Well," said the wolf, "I've longed to eat one of your master's tasty-looking sheep for some time. All I'm asking you to do is to turn a blind eye when I steal one of the old shepherd's sheep." Oh, don't be daft. I can't disobey my master," said Sultan. But the wolf thought he was joking and didn't take any notice of him. That night, he crept over to the farm and tried to attack one of the sheep. But Sultan had warned his master, and just as he was about to pounce on the sheep, he crept up behind with a large whip.
"Off with you, wolf! Go on, off with you!"
The whip frightened the wolf off, and he ran back into the woods.
"That dog doesn't deserve a good friend like me," said the wolf. "He cheated me, and I'm going to get my own back."
Then the wolf stormed off to his old friend the boar, and asked him to go and challenge Sultan to come into the wood and fight the matter out. Sultan didn't want to seem a coward, so he agreed to meet the wolf in the woods. The only creature he could take along for support was a three-legged cat, who made a sorry sight as he limped along behind him. When they reached the woods, the wolf and the boar were ready and waiting. The first thing they caught sight of was the cat's long tail sticking up in the air. But it was so long and straight that, at a distance, they thought it was a sword she was carrying for Sultan to fight with. And every time the poor old cat limped, they thought she was picking up a stone to throw at them. Stones and swords made the boar and the wolf very frightened. They decided that they didn't want to fight anymore. The boar started shaking with fright and ran around in circles for a while, looking for a place to hide.
Where can I hide? I'm frightened.
When he saw a large pile of leaves, he jumped into them and kept well hidden. The wolf, afraid of facing his enemies alone, jumped up into a tree and hoped that the dog and cat would not see him.
Oh dear, oh dear.
"Where can they be? I'm sure we've come to the right place," said Sultan. The boar hadn't hidden himself very well because his ears were just sticking out of the leaves. One of his ears shook, and when the cat saw it, he thought it was a mouse. So he gave it a good, hard bite.
That really hurt,
said the boar. He leapt up and ran away, shouting,
"Look up in that tree! He's the one you should be after!"
So Sultan and the cat looked up, and they saw the wolf sitting in the branches of the tree.
"You cowardly old wolf!"
they shouted.
"Jump down and show your face if you dare, or we'll shake the tree until you fall out of it."
No, don't do that. I'm coming down now,
said the wolf, and the wolf jumped down. When he saw poor old Sultan with hardly any teeth, and the three-legged cat, he was thoroughly ashamed of himself, and said,
I've been a very bad wolf. How could I have treated such a dear friend of mine so badly? Please, will you forgive me?
"We'll forgive you as long as you promise to be good friends with us again and not to challenge us to any more fights," said Sultan.
I promise,
said the wolf. And they all stayed good friends and played happily together until the end of their days.